Thank you. All right, so the Republicans and the Tea Party won a major battle. The Bush tax cuts are extended. You've added $1 trillion to the federal deficit, even though your whole mantra was cut the deficit, balance the budget. What are you going to do now? Now that you won, you're in charge. Governing is different than campaigning. What's the agenda? How do you cut the budget?
Well, first of all, there are two inaccuracies in what you just said. The first being that these are somehow tax cuts. It's not a tax cut. It's basically just an extension of the tax rate which we've had for the past 10 years. And I don't really think that it does all that much, truly, to alleviate some of the concerns that small businesses have. Now, so far as how it adds to the deficit, tax cuts themselves aren't expensive because statistically, and you can look all the way back to Woodrow Wilson and either 1912, 1916, tax cuts actually add to government revenue. The thing that costs is big spending. Now, what I would cut if I were advising this administration, it's really quite simple. And to put it in very fast soundbite terms, and I've said this before on your show, I would cut absolutely everything that is not enumerated in Article 1, Section 8, have a beautiful, luscious budget surplus, and everyone's happy. It's kittens and sunshine. That's what I do.
Dana, just so we can understand, because I apologize, I'm just a lawyer and I know Article 1, Section 8, and I just want to understand. So can we just go through things and, you know, you said it was a soundbite. Social Security, you're going to cut? Are you going to? I'm just trying to understand for our audience as well. You're going to cut Social Security?
I would, if it were my choice, I would allow people to choose whether or not they want to invest their money or if they want the government to control their money.
Wait.
I know Democrats like to spin that as conservatives stealing old people's money. That's not necessarily how it works.
Dana, I just got to follow up because I'm just trying to understand whether or not you call, whether or not you
now
call
you're doing the lawyer thing.
No,
That's
no, I'm just trying to follow along here. Whether or not you call it an extension, I'll put that aside. Everybody agrees there will be $1 trillion less in revenue over the next 2 years. When you say give people a choice on Social Security, giving them a choice is also going to eliminate revenue for the government. You're not going to save a penny over the next 2 years. You're going to actually lose money. So are you cutting Social Security spending or not?
Well, wait a minute. I'm curious because you seem to think that the only way that government can collect money is by taking the fruits of someone else's labor and spending it on entitlements. If you're concerned about cutting the budget, let's talk about the $26 billion edu-jobs teachers unions payoff. We can start with that.
Wait, Dana.
What is it? Unemployment benefits, 13-month extension. It's $56 billion. Let's start with Planned Parenthood funding.
Dana.
Wait a minute. Let's move along to the edu-jobs bill. We can easily get those unemployment benefits paid for.
I'm going to interrupt both. I'm going to interrupt both of you because I'm not a lawyer, and I hope that some of our viewers are not lawyers. I'm personally sick of lawyers, even though I'm married to one. I apologize to him. But would you just tell us what Article 1, Section 8 is, please?
Article 1, Section 8 is all the enumerated powers of the Constitution. What the government is allowed to do, what it's allowed to collect revenue for things very simple, like roads, like emergency services, like national defense. It's not supposed to go towards things like the $26 billion edu-jobs bill. It's not supposed to go towards beaver management, which is what there were earmarks for in the omnibus.
Thank you very much. Are you saying that Social Security is not authorized by the Constitution?
Why do you keep focusing on Social Security?
Well, because that Medicare...
Because you focus on that, but you ignore everything else.
No,
and
Dana,
all of that stuff, actually, if you add it together, it costs more.
No, Dana, it doesn't. I'm trying to talk, as you know, we've had this conversation a couple of times. I'm trying to focus on where the money really is, which is defense spending, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Those are the four big repositories of federal spending. And I'm just trying to get a sense of how you're going to cut the $1 trillion from there.
Well, first of all, let's talk about defense spending. Is that something that concerns you? Defense spending? Do you think that we either spend too much on it, or do you think that it's mismanaged?
Well, I'm asking you how you're going to save $1 trillion. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not we're going to cut defense spending. Do you want to cut defense spending?
Well, going off the presupposition that tax cuts actually cost instead of add revenue to the government, I'll play devil's advocate for just a moment, and I'll let you frame it that way, when we all know that it's illogical, but I'm going to go with it for a second. Some of the things that I would cut include, for instance, there was a defense appropriations bill that was in 2009 that our president supported. Within that piece of legislation, now, for a minute, remember that this was to go towards things like like funding the cost of munitions and funding salaries for our military servicemen and women. Included in this legislation was like millions and millions of dollars for a visitor center in San Francisco in a defense appropriations bill that should have no reason for being included in it, but yet it was. We could talk about responsible defense spending, and by the way, that was something that was added in there by Democrats because that was in Nancy Pelosi's district.
Dana?
So we could start. I'm just answering your question.
Okay, but
That's
I'm trying to get anything close to $1 trillion in cuts. That's all I'm trying to do, because the Tea Party and you're one
I
of
was
the big...
giving you a bunch of stuff.
Well, you cut
but you don't seem to like my answers because it doesn't fit into the agenda.
So far, we've cut a visitor center in San Francisco. And okay,
no, I'm giving you examples of egregious, wasteful spending that are included in defense spending, because you like to say that defense spending is wasteful. I'm actually agreeing with you on it, and I'm telling you in what ways it is, and that can go towards saving $1 trillion from our deficit.
You've cut a visitor center in San Francisco. With all
I gave you one example. I gave you one example.
Do you have any others?
Dana, I know that you Go ahead. No, I'll let you go ahead and finish that, and then I have a question for you.
Okay, well, for instance, Mr. Spitzer, we could get into, I think it was the Edward Kennedy Information Center Policy Institute, millions of dollars spent towards that. I mean, there are so many earmarks that are included in appropriations bills such as this that are spent. It's passed. They're bribes. It's spent. That could go towards saving $1 trillion.
No, actually,
but
Dana?
instead of focusing on all of those instances, because I think we both agree that billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars add up to make $1 trillion over a period of time. Instead of wanting to cut that wasteful spending, you want to take money from people who are trying to save it up for their retirement and instead have the government loot it, as has been done by Social Security over and over again. Al Gore promised to put it in a lockbox. People keep stealing from it. Why is it that everyone else has to suffer? It's their money. It's the fruits of their labor. It doesn't belong to the state.
I feel like I've joined Carl Sagan in hell. Not that he's there, but billions and billions and trillions. Hey, listen, you are kind of a spokesperson. We identify you that as a spokesperson for the Tea Party, and you have a voice out there. But how much actual interaction do you have with the folks in D.C.? I mean, what is your role with our legislators on the ground?
Oh, goodness, that's a really good question. My sort of engagement with them is, well, I every now and then I have lawmakers on my radio show and I talk to them, but mostly any discourse that we have with our elected officials is usually, we expect you to do this for us. Otherwise, we're going to be a little bit upset, or we appreciate you voting in a way that is supportive of the platform of limited government and fiscal responsibility. So that's pretty much, from my experience and from those around me, that's sort of the relationship that exists there.
Dana.